In terms of a starter, based on our last PowerPoint, I would ask you to consider the past paper question shown in front of you. It's asking you to demonstrate your knowledge and understanding to a level C. The diagram below represents the human brain. Which line in the table identifies structures 1, 2 and 3 of the human brain correctly? I'll give you a few moments to consider the table and the diagram. The correct answer to the question should have been highlighted as D. Structure 1 is the cerebrum, structure 2 is the cerebellum, with structure 3 being the medulla. For this PowerPoint, we're going to focus on the two learning intentions highlighted on page 9 of your student guide. We are going to name the 3 types of neurons and their role in the reflex arc, and identify the role of receptors in a reflex arc. In the nervous system, there is a flow of information. One set of nerves, called sensory neurons, carry information from the body's receptors to the central nervous system. Another set of nerves, known as motor neurons, carry information or carry nerve impulses from the central nervous system to the body's effectors. Nerve messages arriving from receptors in the sense organs keep the central nervous system informed about all aspects of the body and its surroundings. The central nervous system sorts out all of this information and stores some of it. When the body is required to make a response, the central nervous system sends out nerve messages to the appropriate effector, such as a muscle or a gland. A response from a muscle is normally more rapid than a response from a gland. For your notes, it's important that you know that there are 3 types of neurons within the nervous system. There are sensory neurons, interneurons, and motor neurons. Sensory neurons pass information to the central nervous system. Interneurons operate within the central nervous system, which processes information from the senses that require a response. Motor neurons enable a response to occur at an effector. An example of an effector is a muscle or a gland. The transmission of a nerve impulse through a reflex arc results in what we call a reflex action. A reflex action is a rapid, automatic, involuntary response to a stimulus. If we look at each of the stages, we will be identifying what's happening in a reflex action. In stage 1, the individual's hand touches a hot plate, and the high temperature stimulates a pain receptor at the end of a sensory neuron. The stimulation of the pain receptor will allow for an electrical impulse to be transmitted along the sensory neuron. The electrical impulse reaches the end of the sensory neuron, chemicals are released that cross the synapse and trigger an electrical impulse that is transmitted along the interneuron. We will look at the role of synapses in our next PowerPoint. At stage 4, the electrical impulse reaches the end of the interneuron. Again, we see chemicals being released across the synapse that trigger an electrical impulse to be transmitted along the motor neuron. The final stage is that the electrical impulse being transmitted along the motor neuron will reach the effector, in this instance a muscle, and the hand will be pulled away from the hot object. For the purpose of your notes, the circuit of the neurons that act to produce the reflex action is called the reflex arc. Reflexes protect the body from harm. Here we have an assessment standard question directly from past paper. In this question, you've been asked to demonstrate your knowledge and understanding to level C. The structures found in a reflex arc are shown in the diagram. Which row of the table correctly identifies P, Q and R? I'll give you a moment to work your way through the table and think about what your correct answer is. We should have identified the correct answer as being B. Q is our motor neuron because it's attaching onto the muscle fibre, so that's the effector organ here. P is from the nerve ending carrying the impulse towards the central nervous system, so that's our sensory neuron, and that leaves R as our interneuron. You're asked to reflect upon the 2 learning intentions covered in this PowerPoint and evaluate your own learning. If there's any gaps in your knowledge or anything you're not quite sure of, go back to the relevant part of the PowerPoint and revisit it.